set clear text. So it wasn't that big of a deal. So the case for DevOps. Basically, I've broken this down into two groups. From a technical perspective, it provides faster delivery. We've already talked about the fact that if you are constantly delivering, you're delivering a better product. It goes more, it goes better with less hassle. So a big benefit of DevOps is that it provides the ability to do faster delivery. More automation. Automation is a good thing. I can't stress that enough. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here later on. Less human error. So if you're automating things, people can't fat finger keywords and stuff like that. In fact, when I first started at Six Flags, our deployments were entirely PowerShell based, manually done, and we have a very distributed system. So a single deployment of a single application would prompt you for credentials 13 times. It wouldn't tell you that you entered the wrong credentials. It just wouldn't work. So that was awesome. Better testing. If you can automate all of your load tests, your performance tests, you can see how this thing's really going to perform under load and get a much better idea of what it's going to do when you push it out to production. And a lot of people think that DevOps is only for the cloud. Well, I can tell you at Six Flags we have very little cloud presence. I'm not going to say we have nothing in the cloud, but just because of the nature of our business, we actually have almost everything in-house, and we make great use of DevOps. It absolutely is a great tool if you are in the cloud, but you certainly don't have to be. And then let's talk about the business uses. So if you are automating everything, you're deploying frequently that's automated, well, you just have more time to add value. Rather than spending your time pushing out code and doing the tedious tasks you don't like that are prone to failure, you end up spending time coding. So that you just deliver more value to the customer. More stable releases. The more frequently that you can push out code, the better it gets. And in fact, my philosophy and what we do at Six Flags, if it's painful, we do it again, even if we don't need to. And we continue to do it. We do it every week if we have to until we get it right. So as we do that, it gets less and less painful until we get it into a smooth running operation. Reduce deployment costs. If you got it automated, it's much cheaper to deploy. Not a whole lot to say about that. And again, because you're spending your time adding value, so there's a website. Talks about the best lines from DevOps days. This is one that I particularly liked. In most organizations, Dev and Ops have misaligned goals. Dev is measured by the number of new features. Ops is measured by 100% uptime. So what's the best way to get 100% uptime? Don't introduce any new features. That would really put us all out of a job, right? So that is, there's truth to that. So the value, that's what we get paid to do, is write code, push this code out, enhance the business through whatever changes, features we're adding, whatever defect it's in. But NetOps wants everything to go to slow-paced value. Slow-paced, or just a slow pace, so that they can ensure 100% uptime. They get nervous about pushing out new software. And if you're not involving them in the process, well, they don't know. Maybe you're using software on a port that they didn't know they needed. Against pushing out software. And so they're at odds with each other. And these are the obstacles you have to overcome if you're going to implement a successful DevOps initiative. Basically, there's a wall between the two, and you really can't have that. You need to work as a cohesive team to solve problems. And once you do that, these things, rather than being at odds with each other, can instead work in parallel with each other. So these are mine and mine alone, the key tenets of DevOps. This is just from my experience. Other people say similar things. This is just the 4 things that I think are the most important. So pragmatic problem solving. I've already said that I'm a pragmatist. I take that approach in everything I do for enterprise. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Automate, automate, automate. Meaning that you're not doing DevOps. And if you can't automate it, then you're going to have a problem. So that is something that you need to do. And when you're building solutions, make sure they are able to be automated. If for some reason you create a solution that's not automated, you're going to have a problem. Avoid silos. So what I mean by that is it's very easy for the different groups to build these little silos around themselves and they don't interact with anybody else. Well, that's not my job. My job is to do this. Or that's not my job. My job is just to monitor the network. If you allow people to be in silos, then it breaks down communication barriers and it breaks down the whole DevOps process. Ultimately, if I was going to say that any one of these things is the most important, it would be trust. If you don't trust the developers as a NetOps professional or a QA professional, or the developers don't trust the other two, you're going to have problems. So, pragmatic problem solving. The first thing you got to do is identify the issue. Developers, I know we all write bug-free code, and there's never any reason to identify issues because they're out to you, right? So, issues crop up. Sometimes they're legitimate code bugs. Sometimes it's a changing environment that wasn't a bug last year, but it is today. So, regardless of why it's an issue, you have to identify the issues. You have to really understand what they are, and they're going to crop up. So as issues crop up and they get logged into your bug tracking system or whatever the issue, whatever the case is, you need to put them into a bucket. And then once you have that, then you got to answer yourself: is this an issue I should solve? It could be entirely possible that the solution is to communicate to the end user. If you do this, it's going to break. The world we live in, right? We have all these technologies and all these merging things that interact together. If you've written something, it may be that the right answer is simply to communicate it out so that users are aware of it. I'm not saying it's always it's certainly a pragmatic issue. But let's assume it is an issue you should solve. So what you have to look at is you've got this bucket of issues. These are the ones I need to solve. Within that bucket, look and say, is this something I can solve with code? If it's solved with code, should I solve it with code? So I have a for my own stupidity. So here we go. Last year in May, Six Flags rolled out the Six Flags mobile app. We did not have a mobile app prior to May. This was version 1.0. And it's pretty basic. It's got the park hours. You can see all the parks in there. If you have a season pass, you go to My Six Flags, load your season pass. You can scan it at the gate or point of sale, redeem various things, whatever. This is not an advertisement for our app, by the way. You can see the rides and all that sort of thing. So here you got John, he's got a season pass loaded. And then right there, you can see the combo season pass, and it has valid dates. So these valid dates show that he had a 2015 season pass. Now, prior to this year, for the most part, when you bought a season pass, you went, you bought your pass, whether you bought it online or at the point of sale register at the front gate. You bought your pass, you scanned your voucher, you processed it, and if you had a season pass last year, you just throw it away. It's a totally different account in our system. That's not really very environmentally friendly media where we're just throwing away these plastic cards. And in addition, it's a cost expense for us. So what we started doing is to the same piece of card. So if you have a season pass from last year and you buy a season pass this year, you can just add it onto your card. Well, when we started developing the mobile app, it really wasn't the case. So the problem is that the season pass had a specific date. It was actually a collection of dates. That in this case, the season pass, when it was created, only had the 2015 season, which was August to January of 2016. Well, then the following year, this person bought a pass in August of 2015, and that pass is valid from the day he bought it until January of 2017. And he loaded it in onto his card. So now he's got two season passes on his card, the 2015 and the 2016. But when he pulled it up in the app, it showed that it expired in January of 2016. Because the app didn't consider the fact that there could be multiple date ranges. It was a legitimate bug. They were looking at only the first date range. And so it generated a lot of guest relations issues because people bought these passes and said, wait a second, I just spent $60, $70 $30 on pass. We could change this back end, or we could change the app. We chose to change the data API. It's sort of a hack, because what it does now is takes all the collection of dates that you have, takes the earliest, the longest across the entire range, so the min and max, and that's what it shows you here. We could have changed the app, and we will change the app. We can't guarantee that all the users will download the update. It takes a week to get approved through Apple. There's a whole slew of reasons that we didn't change the app right away. So we changed the data API. Because the API is versioned, when we do change it in the app next time we go in there, the API will be changed to that version of the app, and it'll work in any version. So that's the pragmatic approach we took. It was just cheaper. And it actually suited the guys better. So anyway, automate, automate, automate. It reduces human error. It creates time. As I've already said, if you are automating your software processes, your deployments, all of your DevOps roles, if they're as automated as they can be, that just gives you more time to do what you like to do, which is probably not deploy software. I doubt many people in this room look forward to, yes, we're going to deploy today. So it does create time. If you can repeat it and repeat it often, then it becomes stable. There are a couple of caveats, however, to automating things. One of the biggest pitfalls you can fall into when you start to automate something is not understanding what you're automating. If you automate a process and you don't really understand it, you don't know all of the environmental factors around it, you're setting yourself up for failure. So before you start to automate a process, really dive into it, get a deep dive, talk to all the people involved, make sure you have the full picture. And then the second caveat is validation. If you can't validate that your automation is succeeding, you're going to run into a problem. I have an example of that too. There's no slide to go with it. But basically, excuse me, we have a business intelligence group, and we basically get all this data that comes from e-commerce and, well, point of sale as well, and all of that merges into a system. So at Six Flags, there are two ways to buy pass. You can buy the traditional season pass, which is good. You can buy membership, which is a 12-month contract. You pay X amount per month, depending on the type of pass you get. And then after that, you go month to month. So every month, you get billed 5, 6, whatever the case is for the pass you have. And it hits your credit card. Well, those payments flow into our system. Now, that's an entirely accounting thing, anything that I write software for, but we do have a process that takes this data in an XML format and shreds it so that the BI systems can use it. Well, for whatever reason, the automated process that moves all that stuff in and shreds it had a bug. And occasionally would time out, and the payment wouldn't shred. So we have it logged, we store all of that, not a problem. But when they go to do the BI, they notice, hey, wait a second. When we go to close out our financials, we're missing all these payments. So, what's the deal? No big deal. We just reprocessed them and found the bug, fixed it, and now everything's happy. And now we alert on that particular issue. So that was something that flew under the radar and caused us a problem and a lot of late hours. Easily overcome, but that's an example of not validating an automated process. We all developers test the happy path. That what you got to do is test the not so happy path. This is a typical organization reason. Bigger the more this tends to happen. After an Amazon, Six Flags, you end up having stakeholders, developers, QA, all these people are in their own little thing. You don't wear a lot of hats, typically. You do, and if it's something else, then you just throw it over the wall to the next person, whatever bucket that falls into, that you think it falls into. And when they look at it, they may throw it over the wall to another bucket. Well, that doesn't really accomplish. Companies have this less because they simply don't have the personnel to make this happen. But the simple fact is these silos are really counterproductive. It may seem on the surface on your job because all you're doing is help and the organization a good service. Because when you're in the silo, you really lose track and focus of the entire world around you, right? And if you're going to build a successful DevOps initiative, you really kind of have to break down these barriers, create cross-functional teams. Paul Duvall said, developers can learn a lot from operations, and operations can learn a lot from developers. I wholeheartedly support that. So then the last one, and this is the absolute hardest, is don't gossip. Develop trust. You know, don't throw stones. When something goes wrong, and it will, the last thing you want to do, and this frustrates me more than anything else when I see somebody do it, well, it's not my fault, it's his fault. I didn't do it. Or, I don't know who did it. It's somebody else's fault. I don't have time to deal with that. How about when a problem comes up, rather than just pointing fingers at each other and throwing stones and saying it's not my fault, passing it by, why don't we all work together and solve this as a team? I guarantee you we'll come to the answer much faster than if we do it on our own and don't waste time finger pointing. Something comes up, take responsibility for it. If it's yours, absolutely own up to it. I guarantee you're going to instill trust in your coworkers if you do that. So, the final thing to this is that management buy-in is critical. If you don't have buy-in from upper level managers, then, you know, over these departments, and they don't trust the other departments, then the subordinates are not going to. So it's important that this comes from the top down. A perfect example of this, I'll just speak on myself. We had we have quite a few parks. At one of our parks, we had a gate issue about 6 months ago. At 10:21 a.m. every single day, the gate went offline. That's a really busy time for the park. They have a huge line of people. It didn't happen in any other park, and they're all running the same version of the software. They're all running the same hardware. In theory, they're all identical. So, what's causing this? I don't know. So this went unsolved for about 2 months. Every day at 10:21, the park would call and say our network's offline, or our gate's offline. The developers tended to say, well, there's nothing in our code that does that. We're running the same code everywhere. So it's got to be something in the network. I don't know. It's the network guys are saying, well, there's nothing going on in the network. It's obviously something in a SQL server or some automated process you kick off at 10:21. I should also add that in this particular case, there was a third-party piece of software involved, and the vendor said, it's not our fault, we run this everywhere. So we have three parties, all pointing, and not a damn thing was happening to actually solve the problem. And what is this? It impacts our guests. It impacts our bottom line, and it makes the parks not teaching. So we really thought. We ultimately did work together and finally solve the problem, and it no longer happens. But it took the group effort between us, the network team, and the third-party vendor to sit down in the room, put our heads together, figure out what logging needed to be done, and find the source of the problem. And the problem went away. But that's a perfect example of where if you're throwing stones or you're gossiping, bad-mouthing, just tossing it over the wall, that you're not going to get anything done. We could have bypassed this a lot more time and instilled some trust in each other had we worked together. So I mentioned Six Flags a little bit, but this talk so far focused mostly on DevOps is just as a generality, some of the key principles and that sort of thing. Now I'm going to talk about Six Flags and how we implement DevOps specifically. Before I do that, do you guys have any questions on the stuff we've covered so far?
Whose fault was the issue?
Yeah, I knew I was going to open myself up to that. It was a SQL job. So we were wrong. That's right. Anything else? For those that didn't hear, his question was, whose fault was it? It was the developer's fault. Okay. Well, if you think of anything, jot it down. I'm definitely going to be hanging around after the presentation. I'll be here all day. So if anybody has any questions or wants to talk, tell me I'm totally wrong on something. I'm totally open to that. I like feedback. So about Six Flags. We are the world's largest regional theme park company. A lot of people think we compete with Disney and Universal. We don't. Those are destination theme parks. People typically, they book a vacation, they fly there, they stay in a hotel on premise, and they enjoy this experience. Let's go to Disney. Disney's a great company, but we don't technically compete with them. We're a regional theme park, and the biggest regional theme park. So we can compete with and 13 individual sites. Some of those have like a sibling park, like a water park and a theme park. For example, Six Flags Over Texas and Hurricane Harbor. Those would count as 2 of the 18, but they're one entity as far as we're concerned from a technical perspective. In 2014, we did over $1 billion in revenue. This year, we haven't released our 2015 financials. In 2014, Well, actually, for the 5 years previous to this, we've made the Information Week Elite 500 technical companies, and this year we were number 59. So the cool thing about that is, given the size of our infrastructure and the number of need, we actually do our DevOps team with about 3 full-time developers, a few contractors, and about 4 full-time network people. That's our entire IT team. So we do a lot of work with a very limited number of resources. This is from our CEO, Jimmy Anderson. We pride ourselves on innovation at every level, from our record-breaking rides and attractions to business solutions that create efficient, seamless park operations. Our leadership role in information technology serves as a strategic and brand differentiator for our company. I think that sums up what we do pretty well. So I listed on here some of the technology that we use. We're a Microsoft shop. This list is absolutely not exhaustive. If it was, it would be at least 3 times the size, maybe 10 times the size. We do try and stay on the latest, so most of our .NET is using C#6. But then again, we have some stuff running .NET 1.1. I don't like to write those. We write some mobile stuff, and I'm not talking about the mobile app. I'm talking about handheld scanners at the gate that run Windows CE on .NET Compact Framework 3.5. So we have a pretty broad array of technology that we have to deal with. You know, I'd like to upgrade that, but we're constrained by hardware, and those hardware units are incredibly expensive. So you deal with what you have. We use in-service bus. We've actually just started using in-service bus. I've used it previously, and I think it's a good fit for our organization. So we're working on getting it in there. We run a really complex system of service-oriented architecture with WCF or MSMQ, .NET services running everywhere. So we have a pretty complex architecture. We started building web APIs to interact with our data. Most of our APIs today run over, net TCP binding and WCF. It gets proxied across the queue, but for the mobile app and some other things that are a little bit more global, we actually have started building RESTful web APIs to great success. Unfortunately, we still have a few SOAP services. I'm not a fan of SOAP, but they're third-party integrations, and we're trying to get our vendors to move into some of our RESTful services instead of SOAP. We use Entity Framework for our data layer, and we range from Entity Framework version 4.x to the latest, and hopefully moving to 7 once it's fully released. We do run Windows CE. Some of our controls are not a whole lot of that, to be honest. We have one monumental WPF app that's where the accelerate controls. It's great. I don't like it because it's hard to test. It's hard to automate. When we do a regression, that's one of our biggest pieces of code. It's really, really hard to do because of the way that the controls are all nested in there. And so we're working to convert that to a web app, running Angular, and some just a little bit more modern, more testable flow. It's also a hell of a lot more deployable. Who here likes click once and pushing out WPF apps to 3,000 machines? There are some people, but not a lot. We use Octopus Deploy to great effect. Octopus Deploy is one of the key pieces of our DevOps software, a massive difference in our ability to deploy software. We have about 3,000 desktops. We have Chromebooks. We have servers at all these locations. We have two data centers, and we have to deploy software, all of that. When I first started at Six Flags, we were doing it via PowerShell. So I think I mentioned that earlier. So Octopus Deploy has taken all of that work, running all of these scripts, remembering how to go in there and tweak these scripts when you want to change what you're deploying to. Maybe we have a machine down or a network connection down, so we need to take that part out of the mix for the time being. Now you just uncheck the box if you don't want to. We use Slack. Do any of you guys in the room use Slack? Slack is great. We used to use Skype. I like Slack because it plugs in, has webhooks and plugins to most of the software we do. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. I consider it part of our DevOps initiative because it really does help facilitate communication on key components. Coverity. Do any of you guys use Coverity? Any of you guys heard of Coverity? So Coverity is awesome. You got one person here. So Coverity is a static analysis tool that can go out there. It can build your code. It watches the build, and it actually runs what they call checkers over your entire code base to look for security vulnerabilities, memory leaks, resource leaks, that sort of thing. It finds legitimate bugs. These are bugs that are hard for a developer to see, okay? And they're not testing the software. They're not. So we have an automated process that does that, and it identifies legitimate bugs. So it's very valuable. When I first started, had everything in TFS, as far as our source code, our work items, the whole thing. We actually now use Bitbucket with Git. We have a few things in GitHub still, but most of it is going to be over Bitbucket. Both GitHub and Bitbucket, right? I'm a Git fan. The reason we use Bitbucket is because we have a ton of repositories, and Bitbucket charges per user, not per repository, whereas GitHub is the opposite. So it's just a much more cost-effective solution. We use Jira. We don't use Jira nearly enough. We're trying to migrate all of our TFS work items. So our source code has been moved over to Bitbucket, but our work items are still in TFS, and we're working to move some of that off to Jira. Obviously, we use TFS. TeamCity, that's our build server. I've used Jenkins. I've used a lot of different systems. We've used, TFS. I love TeamCity. I can't say enough good things about it. It's easy to work with. You can build templates, and once you build all of these build templates that are really complex and do all of your tasks, setting up a new build is nothing. We created a new web project the other day. It has a web API that interacts with a database, deploys to a central system and to some remote systems. And once it's coded and ready to go, we're like, well, we need to be able to push this out to dev, environment, and QA. It took about 5 minutes to set it up in TeamCity, another 5 minutes to set it up in Octopus. You hit a button, it builds, it runs unit tests, and it goes. So we use that to great effect. Most of our developers run ReSharper. I like ReSharper. For all of our public-facing web APIs, we use RunScope. And that's usually the last step of the deploy. If we're deploying a web API, is to kick off the test, and then RunScope both emails us the results and notifies Slack of the results, showing exactly what happened. So we document all of our web APIs with Swagger. I love Swagger. It's a great tool. And if you use Swashbuckle, do any of you use Swagger? If you're .NET developers, there's a NuGet package called Swashbuckle. I highly recommend it. You plug it in, and it builds the Swagger for you. So if you have XML comments in your code, it picks them up. It's awesome. It's much better than the built-in .NET help software. So as far as our network infrastructure, all of our servers are VMware running on NetApps at the data center in every part. So the way our infrastructure is built, we have a data center in New York, we have a data center in Dallas, we have these 13 locations, and every location theoretically has the exact same servers, just renamed with a different IP address. The VLANs are identical, everything is identical. So when you deploy to one, you can, and it works there, unless there's some system down or something, you should be able to guarantee that it'll work identically everywhere else. And of course, that always works, right? We also now have Android and iOS since we built these apps, and our mobile apps are native, so they're not running Xamarin. Not that there's a problem with Xamarin, I'm a fan. But these are written in Objective-C and Java, and the version 2 of the iOS, which we're currently working on, will be some Objective-C and most of Swift. So I just wanted to give you a little breakdown. These are our core projects. I label infrastructure as components that we use that are cross-project. So we have, like, for example, 6sites.common library. It has all of our logging infrastructure, the logs to databases, all of our information in it that deals with data access. There's a bunch of different components, and they're broken into NuGet packages. So we have an internal NuGet server, and when we build that as an automated process, if we're building out a develop, it creates a pre-release NuGet, and if we build out of the master, it creates a release NuGet, flags it as such, puts it out there, and we can just update our projects if we want to. So that works really well for us. I love NuGet, and having an internal project is awesome. Access control, that is literally referring to the gate. So we have this big initiative right now where we're kind of rewriting some of the gate software, and that is that code there. So this is per 1,000 lines of code. So just to give you an idea, the ticketing one down here at the bottom is almost 7 million lines of code. That's what that number represents. It just looked weird with all the zeros. So access control is one of the more critical pieces we have, because if guests can't get in the gate, and they can't spend money, right? we don't make money and they don't have a good day. So access control, while it's a very small section of our code base, is an incredibly critical piece. Labor management, our single biggest cost factor is probably seasonal labor. So we've done a big initiative, started it last year, we're going to continue it this year to improve our HR and labor management systems. Also, because we do have parks in all over North America, Canada, Mexico, there are different laws and regulations regarding employees. Some states allow minors, but they have very, very the mobile code base, that includes both the actual source code that runs on the phones and the API that supports it, and then the ticketing within the app. I call it ticketing, that's what we call it internally. That is point of sale, that is season passes, that's day tickets, it's comp tickets, it's meal vouchers, dining passes, it's really a slew of things, and that is our bread and butter of what we do as a development group. So, at Six Flags, these are a couple of things that we run into as deployment barriers, and really what I would like to say DevOps barriers. But the first two are a bit of a misnomer. So we are a PCI certified company. PCI, for those, is everybody familiar with PCI? Maybe not. So PCI is payment card industry. It's a security standard that you're required by law to comply with if you do over a certain threshold of credit transactions and credit cards. I think there's 4 or 5 tiers. We got upgraded from tier 2 to tier 1 EAS. What that really means is that we have a hell of a lot more auditing procedures that we have to go through. Compliance aspects are not any different, but they look at you with a fine-tooth comb a little bit more from tier 1. And I say a little bit more, I really mean a lot more. So for the last month and a half, I've done almost nothing as far as coding, and almost 100% devoted to our audit that we're in the middle of. So the reason I list this as a barrier is because we do have all these strict security protocols in place. I mean, it's crazy. You plug when the guy plugged in the remote key fob in my laptop basically shut down for about 5 minutes while it scanned it to make sure that it was okay. So it's annoying, and those are things we have to work through. It means we have firewalls all over the place, very strict. We don't let traffic in or out unless it's specifically authorized. If we want to open firewall port, we have to put a change management request into a board consisting of about 5 people. Most of them are not technical. All change requests go through this. They have to vote on it, pass it. So those things get in our way. But at the end of the day, because we have a successful DevOps initiative and everything is automated, once we get it through this process, it's easier to apply requirements because the auditor can say, well, show me how you can't do this. You know, I could have deployed software PowerShell script if I wanted possible. SOX, which is Sarbanes-Oxley, we're publicly traded. So we also have auditing requirements from that. Almost all of those are already covered by PCI, but I put it on there because it's another level of audit we do. We have year-round park operations. I'm guessing most of you are local, if not all of you. But so everybody thinks that Six Flags over Texas is open, you know, from about mid-March during spring break until Halloween Park. But we actually have the park in Mexico is open year-round. Parks in California are open year-round. I think we have a few more continue the year-round thing. So while some of our parks are closed, we do have year-round operations. It doesn't give us any downtime operating infrastructure and stuff. So we have to work around that, and our DevOps is a big part of that. It's a seriously complex environment. So we have these 13 locations plus 2 data centers. There's actually park communication. If you want to do the service on another park, and they do need to do that, and that's because of PCI requirements. So instead, they have proxy which then sends them that whole MCQ service-oriented architecture. A practical example of that is, let's say you buy a season pass. Well, your season pass is going to be valid at the park you bought it at, but unless you bought the really lowest end one, it's valid everywhere else too. So we don't pass all of your data to every park, okay? And 99% of the time they don't need it, so we don't do that. But what we do is we send a message. So when you buy your pass and activate it, the message gets sent to our distribution server. which then says, oh, I need to notify all these other gates if your password will work. It doesn't send any other information, but it does tell the gate software which exists. And so that'll create 18 different messages. And send them on other parts. So that's how all of our messaging works. And we have to work, we could be a little bit faster when we send these messages, but at the same time, we don't have interpart processing, so it's a little bit difficult to do. Last year, or 2 years ago now, we rolled out all-season dining. So Disney has had dining for a while. Six Flags rolled it out. Ours works completely differently than theirs does. But if you have a dining pass, you come to the park, you get a free snack, a free lunch, and a free dinner every time you come to the park. But what this does is generate vouchers. So the first year, it was your local park only. Now it's national. So if you drive down to Fiesta, Texas, and you have a national dining plan, they don't know who you are. The gate will let you in, but there's no concept of your dining plan or whatever. So when you go to the point of sale restaurant and you try and validate your voucher, it has to be very fast. We don't want mind tracking of it point of sale because that doesn't make for a good guest experience. Our research tells us that the number one, aside from safety, the number one metric that guests rate us on is rides per day. That's it. So if you're standing in line for 45 minutes to get a hamburger, that's 45 minutes you're not in line for a ride. So it's incredibly important. I already mentioned those. As I said, we have a service-oriented architecture, and we have third-party integrations all over the place. This is the top 3, but there are 50 more. These are the top 3 that I deal with on a regular basis. Our e-commerce vendor, we don't do the e-commerce processing, and that's really to shield us from PCI. We let them take advantage of that. We have a front gate vendor that we deal with, and our point of sale vendor. So these all integrate very tightly with our system. And it's critical that we keep those systems in mind as we also now have mobile devices to contend with. When you load your season pass on your app, it's clicking into our ticketing system to validate that you still have a valid season pass. So all of that happens. And then we have disaster recovery. As I said, because of our complex architecture, where we have a central hub, it's a hub that's put on a Six Flags corporate office, where the data center is, all the parks process through there. If our connection goes down, the parks are kind of screwed, right? So we actually have built the infrastructure so that they are completely self-sustained. No park lookups will fail until the disaster recovery happens. We transfer everything to our data center. But all of that ties into our DevOps initiative. So these are things we have to keep in mind. So actually, the DevOps enables all these to work national smoothly and through the
So Peter?
Yes.
So I noticed that your tool set is more deployment oriented.
Yes.
And you're talking about your security challenges with PCI compliance and wonderful committee that gets together with firewall rules and stuff. Has your operations or security teams viewed DevOps as a tool for them to use to automate and streamline those processes, or have you gotten resistance to that in your organization?
No, that's absolutely a great question. So this question is basically, I've talked about a lot of the deployment aspect, and I've also talked about the fact that we are a tier 1 security or tier 1 PCI vendor. So have our operations team using those tools more and more to streamline the process of rolling out security updates and things like that. Everything is automated. Nothing is coming. Anything you could talk off and say. It's awesome. In fact, we had a server the other day that runs a PowerShell script that requires PowerShell 4. We installed PowerShell 4 on the system. It wasn't an approved update. It worked fine that day, but it doesn't work. PowerShell's not on there anymore. The system has been wiped back to a previous version. All of that is automated and done through the deployment tools. Security updates are pushed out. Windows updates are pushed out through any security policies and stuff that are outside of Active Directory are definitely using Octopus Deploy and various technologies that we use to facilitate that. It's a great question. Anything else?
So you said you had a services within the backend. So how do you manage the use of services which is the actual kind of go together hand in hand, or
So that's a great question. We don't have, so his question was, we have, I mentioned that we have a bunch of back-end services that run to facilitate these communications, Windows services. And then of course we have front-facing user applications. Very little that has to do with guest-facing. Most of that's done by our team, but on sixdogs.com. However, his question was, how do we manage releases and codependencies between services and front end? Do we release everything together as a separate teams? That's basically the question, right? So that's a great question. And the answer is yes. So except for it's one team. So we do all of the services, all of the front end, all of the UX work. Everything is one team. And there are a ton of all these things. So it's difficult because we have to manage when we're doing the release. Well, do we need to release this service? Do we update anything in this service? So we've tried a couple of different approaches to this. I'd say it's a work in progress. So we started out, every time we deploy everything. That's absolutely my preferred way to do it. Before deploying, that was much more difficult to achieve. But we're definitely moving that way. Because if we deploy everything every time, repeatability, it gets easier, So that's one way. The other way is we try deploying just what's changed. So it's the least impacted systems. The parts are more comfortable with that. They think they're more comfortable with that. They're not technical. They don't understand that what that really means is if we don't deploy that service but once a year, because it's a service maybe we don't ever change, then when we do deploy it, we've overlooked something and it breaks. So our strategy is to automate everything and deploy it all the time, at least within a project scope. So we don't deploy labor management, we deploy ticketing. But when we deploy ticketing, we deploy it. So our methodology, we're an agile shop. When we do backlog grooming, set aside an hour. We go through all the user requests that come in, feedback from our recent deployments and that sort of thing. Just look at the backlog in general. And we prioritize based on what's important to the business right now. Because as you know, priorities change. So we look at that, and it really helps us to prune that list down so that when we get into sprint planning, we have a much smaller list to work with. We know what's at the top of it. We still let the developers choose what work they're going to do that sprint. We don't say, you're absolutely going to do these 5 stories regardless of size. We don't do that. We have done that. It didn't work well. Instead, we say, these are the stories that need to happen and the defects that need to be worked. You guys tell us what you can do, what you want to do. Backlog grooming has been huge. Sometimes that meeting is 15 minutes long. Sometimes it goes 2 hours. It just depends, but it has been very beneficial. Yes.
What's the size of your backlog? I mean, like 100 items, 1,000 items?
Upwards of 3,000.
Okay. And so when you do grooming, you're prioritizing for, I don't know, the next month, or are you going through all 3,000 and picking one to just toss?
No, that's a great question. So that's not my fault. I've only had 1 cup of coffee, so I apologize. So that's a great question. His question is, when we do our backlog grooming, do we get 3,000 work items, or do we just look at a certain percentage of them or whatever? So as we put things in, we stack rank them. We have business analysts that their full-time job is to deal with users and get feedback throughout the week. I mean, they're certainly in the backlog grooming meeting, and they're critical to it, but they do that sort of thing all week long, right? So what happens is, when we get to our backlog grooming, they've been stack ranking all of our stories and rearranging them throughout the week, but these are the things the business is most critical. I would say on average, if it's been a busy week, we might have 50 stories that we go through. Sometimes it's 5, all those things in backlog, some of them we're never going to work. We have 3,000 plus items in our backlog. We're never going to work some of those stories. Most of them are, down there near the bottom are deprecated. They're not even applicable anymore. And at some point, we do need to take the technical debt story to prune that. But right now, we just float to the top the things that we need to work on, and those are the ones we deal with. So we stack rank with 0 being the highest priority, 1,000, whatever it is, being the lowest. And we work the ones that are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that answer your question?
Mhm.
Yes.
How involved are your product owners in backlog burning?
Well, that's a great question. So our business owners, which I'm referring to as stakeholders here, they are incredibly critical. They come to the backlog grooming meetings, or at least they have a representative there if they can't be there themselves. But the simple fact is, when I first started, we didn't do a great job of that. We would get feedback, but it was way too late in the system, right? Way too late in the process. So by the time we got feedback, usually we had at least a working prototype so we could demo something to them. But that's wasted work if it doesn't really address the needs. Maybe we didn't understand it when the request first came in. So we get much earlier feedback. We use mockups as a tool. I don't know if any of you use mockups. It's just a wireframing tool. I like it. At the point we start putting mockups together, we get the stakeholders and product owners involved. And that has made a huge difference. That's an initiative we started about midway through last year, and we've done it to great effect. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So we do our daily stand-up. And the one thing I want to say about the daily stand-up is everybody does daily stand-up. I work with a lot of teams. In fact, I currently fly to Boston about once a month to work with there. They do their daily stand-ups quite well. I've worked at other companies where they don't do their stand-ups well at all, in my opinion. So the problem with the stand-up, it tends to get monotonous. People get bored with it. People get fired up, especially at the start of a new project or maybe the start of a new sprint, depending on the team. But as time moves on, stand-up ends up being, yesterday I worked on defects, today I'm going to work on this story, blocks. And that's the stand-up, right? I don't get any value out of that. I don't know about you guys, but most people don't get value out of that. So we try to emphasize, those are the questions we ask, but we do it like this. We say, tell us what you accomplished yesterday. I don't care what you worked on. I want to know what you accomplished. If you worked on something and didn't accomplish it, don't bring it up. Or if you didn't today. So it's a subtle but distinct difference. If you tell your developers and QA personnel what to take ownership of this, say, I commit that I'm going to finish story 1, 2, 3 today, and have it checked in by the end of the day. That's something they can take ownership of. And it seems like a subtle difference, but I'm telling you it makes a big difference in productivity. If people take ownership of it, they're just a little bit more productive. So that's what I want to say about our stand-up. On to DevOps. So combined team demo. And they do their own thing. I don't want any part of that. They deal with finance managers and you know those guys. That's the part I like to stay out of. But so they do their own sprint and whatnot. I'm not part of their scrum or their stand-up or any of that. But on demo week, we all get together and we show what we did during the sprint demo and retrospective. Because it gives me an idea of what these guys are working on. I'm not part of their daily stand-up. Our labor management team, I am part of their daily stand-up, but we all get together. So it helps between the teams. Developers feel like they have an idea of what's going on. And maybe there's no crossover between the products now, but I guarantee you at some point, labor management and ticketing will cross over. We need to validate badges against labor management through some new service they have. So it's helpful to be on top of what they're doing, even if you're not part of their daily stand-up. And we've already talked about stakeholder feedback. So this is a little flow chart I sort of put together to kind of show you how we do our development flow. It's not 100% accurate. I've taken some shortcuts because if it was 100% accurate, I couldn't put it on the slide. But, so let's say you've been working on something, and at the end of the day, you're done with it. Maybe it was a feature, branch. I should say before I go into this, we use GitFlow. I don't know. What I found is that you either love GitFlow or you absolutely hate it. There's very few people in the middle. I love GitFlow. Works for us. So let's say at the end of the day, regardless of whether you've been working in a feature branch or whatever, now you're ready to merge into develop and push it to the server, right? So you do that. At that point, the CI build takes off in Team City. CI build happens, it runs unit tests and any other testing of JS tests, whatever the case is, it runs all your tests. If it succeeds, you get a green light. If it doesn't, you get a red light in Slack, and if you in Slack, lots of notifications go out. You don't want to be that about the build. So what this does is produce no artifacts whatsoever. Just throw them all. This is simply a build. It has no version. That just says it's green, it's red. So the code review aspect. I know most people don't like code reviews, but they're really important. And I listed as coming after the CI build. It's really initiated by the developer, so it really should be parallel to the CI build up there. But these things sort of all happen at once. So there are a million ways to do code reviews if you do them all. And if you don't do them, you should start doing them. Peer code reviews developers hate, but it really makes a difference. It's just like with musicians. And I play guitar and a little bit of bass. The best thing you can do if you're not a good musician like myself is sit around the room with a bunch of good musicians. You will instantly get better. It's the same thing with peer review. You want to be the dumbest guy in the room. That's my goal, is to be the guy that knows the least amount of whatever I'm doing in the room. Because if I'm surrounded by excellence, I'm going to get better. Code review is a great way to do that. It isn't a way to make fun of people. It isn't a way to be ashamed of your code or to be nervous about showing it because you're talking to some guy that wrote 18 books on C# or whatever. Simple fact is, code review really helps. There's a million ways to do it. A lot of people do pull requests. So before they will before they process the pull request and merge it into master or whatever their release branch is, they'll do the code review at that point. Because of PCI compliance, we're audited on code reviews. We need documented cases of code review. It's a little easier for us to use an actual dedicated system for it. So we use UpSource, which is a JetBrains product. Works really well for us. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. At any rate, the code review kind of happens outside of this, but I thought it was important to put it on the slide, so I sort of fit it in where I thought it made sense. At the end of the day, we have an automated build called the Coverity Analysis build. I already mentioned Coverity. It runs all these checkers. Coverity actually hired Eric Lippert, so their C# is pretty cool, what it does. And it analyzes the entire source tree and publishes it to their own database, where you can then triage those defects that come in and put them into Jira, export them, and assign them to people. So that's an automated thing that happens every single day on every single piece of code we do. There isn't a line of code in our system that doesn't go through this every day, unless it didn't change. Then we have a daily build. This also goes overnight, and it runs on the develop branch or a feature branch. If there's a feature branch, it'll run that. This thing looks at the builds it. It's zero-based. So what I mean by that is our version numbers are not assigned here. And this is a divergence from when I first started. When I first started, let's say the current release product version is 2.0. Our dev branch was always 2.1. And then we would merge that, or rather branch that into a 2.1 branch, and we would bump the dev version up to 2.2. But it became really confusing. And I know a lot of people use a strategy like that. I didn't like it, and it actually has caused us before to accidentally push software out of dev straight to production. And that is not something you want to do. So we changed it to be a zero-based version. Then we deploy to dev. So all of that happens automatically. So basically, TeamCity does the CI build, the Coverity build, the data build. It creates a release. It pushes it to Octopus. It then tells Octopus, hey, deploy this to dev. And if any one of those steps fail, it fails. And then, of course, if there's integration tests, those get run as well. So the first 6, those are our core daily operating procedures. Then let's say you've been working on something for a while and you're ready to cut a release candidate. So when you do that, you actually go in, we use GitFlow, we create a release branch, we merge all the code from dev into that branch, and that's the starting point. At any given time, our master branch is exactly what's in production. If you touch the master branch, it irritates me. You know, that's what I tell the developers, because that should be an exact copy of production. So if you're going to do a bug fix or whatever that's a critical patch, do it as a hot fix and GitFlow and merge it into release. But release should never be updated before it's in production or master. So the GitFlow release candidate is created, and the release build fires off inside of the TeamCity server. And you'll notice that this says it's an X-based version. So whatever the version number is, that's what it gets built with. There is a clear distinction. You can always tell on any one of our software packages, is this built out of the develop branch or was it built out of the release branch? And then it's deployed to QA. So our daily build deploys to dev, which builds off the develop branch. The release build builds off of our release candidate and deploys straight to QA. I had a lot of pushback on that when I first implemented it, but it's really worked pretty well because the developers can continue working on their stuff out of their main branch, their daily work, and they're pushing to dev, they're testing, and dev is a little bit less stable. But when we're ready to do release, we just skip dev, so we don't override it with other code because the fact is, the stuff in that release candidate might be older than the stuff that's in the develop branch. So we skip that and push to QA. Now, from within Octopus, we can promote a dev branch to QA, or backwards, we can go QA to dev if we need to. You know, we have a simple server, so if something's going on in QA, we want to debug it, we just push it backwards to dev and check it out. But the fact is, we do that very specifically for a reason. And then at the end of the day, once the QA signs off on it and we're ready to deploy it to stage, we do. That's just a button push in Octopus. And by the way, this is, a lot of people will tell you that everybody should be able to do everything in the PCI, and this, regarding DevOps, everybody should be able to do everything. In the PCI environment, that's not really feasible. So nobody in dev can hit that button. I mean, hit it, but it'll fail. So it's a service account that we use, and that service account has no permission to deploy to anything past QA. They actually run a script that inserts that service account into an Active Directory group that does have the permissions to do that. And then when they're done, they revoke it. Yes?
What tooling are you using for triggering?
So that's all Octopus and TeamCity, which I'll show you in just a second. So once it's deployed to stage, the user acceptance testing happens, and then at the end of the day, it's deployed to production. And that is our flow. So if you look right here, this is just a snapshot of our actual production TeamCity server. So I want to call out this one section here. This is the mobile API, right? So you can see we have 4 build setups. We have CI builds, covariate analysis, daily builds, and release. So CI and covariate, those are, well, CI is every time you check in. Covariate is daily. Daily is daily. Although you can kick this off manually because that's the way to deploy it. You check in code, you want to see it immediately in dev, just run that if you don't want to wait till the next step. And you'll build it, and you'll push it out to dev. You can see the version number. This is what I was talking about. So it's just a zero-based version number where the last digit is the build count. And that's the SHA from the Git check-in. And then the release build, which I should have extended that in a screenshot, but that actually shows you a real version number. So all of these are automatically triggered. We have TeamCity allows you to set up all kinds of triggers. You can set scheduled triggers. You can set up triggers on other builds. So if a build completes, it can trigger another build. You can cascade it down. So to answer your question, that is where we trigger all of this stuff from. This is a screenshot of our actual Octopus deploy. There's no way I can fit it all on one page. We have over 80 deploys and over 80 TeamCity builds. So in here, you have 4 columns: dev, QA, staging, and prod. So if you look at this right here, this is just a particular line graph. You can see that in dev it's zero-based. That was automatically deployed by the dev build for that particular code base. And you can see in QA, that has a release build in it. This is another. If you look at our deployment process, I told you before we have accidentally, not proud of it, deployed production code, deployed to production from dev. It's a horrible idea. I don't advise it. Things are really bad really fast. But we put this step at the top, Octopus deploy step. So this, what you're looking at is the Octopus deployment process. You can create as many steps as you want. I'm only showing you the first few. But the very first step every single build uses is to validate release eligibility. And you can see that it only runs in UAT in production. So when it runs, it says, does the version start with a 0? If it does, it fails, period. You cannot push a zero-based thing past QA. So now, a crappy person could go in there and disable that step and deploy it. But you're actually going on your way to defeat the system at that point. This is meant to keep you from making a mistake, not from being malicious. So it's not foolproof, but it has really served us well. I mentioned UpSource, which is our code repository. This is an example. If you look in here, this is an actual method. Somebody overrode Git hash code in one of our classes. And I said, out of curiosity, he responded, I'll have an answer, so I accepted it. And then when the auditors come to us and say, you guys are viewing your code? Yeah, it's right here. Show me this piece of code. I can look it up by commit. I can look it up by person. I can look it up by class, whatever. So these things work really well for us. And I mentioned tooling. We use Slack as a big part of our DevOps initiative. Slack, this is a screenshot of Slack from deployment from initiated by Team City, or build initiated by Team City on comparing two different projects. The first one is a DB migration. The second one is a point of sale UI. And you can see that basically this guy just announces to us, hey, I had these two commits. It was done by this person. It took 18 minutes to build, and I succeeded. This is build agent that did it. You can customize that. That's what works for us. So these are things that we do to just keep notified. So I'm here today, but I have Slack running on my phone, and I can instantly see what builds are going on, what's failing, that sort of thing. So it's a great tool. So what we do well, I think we write high-quality code. We honestly have incredible user feedback. We had our corporate offsite for all the directors and above this week in San Antonio. And I wasn't there, but we got a standing ovation from the rest of the groups. They like what we've done. And a big part of that is due to DevOps, because we make it painless for them. We credit for it. I'm just saying it's something we do, and it has made a massive difference. We emphasize training. We encourage our developers to stay current on technologies. Go to conferences. Total site subscriber, you should be. I try to watch at least 2 courses a month. I don't want to succeed in that endeavor, but even if it's something I don't really have any interest in, because knowledge is power, right? I mean, the more you know, the more effective something you directly interact with. So I emphasize training. Go to VS Live. Go to these types of things. Stay current. And then, but be pragmatic about it. If it's a personal project you're building, go hog wild, do all beta stuff, whatever. If it's a doing it, you know, you want to be aware that things like Heartbleed and stuff like that, it comes up. So take a pragmatic, holistic view, which is that you want to innovate, and say, does this fit my needs well? Will it really solve the problem I'm doing, and will it solve it in the most efficient and cost-effective manner? If it won't, it's probably not the right fit. If it will, by all means, implement it. And then truly understand the business requirements. We do a pretty good job of getting involved with the stakeholders, the primary people, the business analysts. We get users on the phone, we run A/B tests. We really understand the business requirements. You're going to write more effective code if you do. When you deal with a team that doesn't understand the core business requirements, it doesn't always work so well. I'm trying to wrap up here because we're getting to the end of the time. Areas that we need improvement on. One of the key things about DevOps is to constantly look at what you're doing. Look back and say, is this working for us? We do it at the end of every sprint, we do a retrospective. Why should your DevOps initiative be any different? If you're doing a DevOps initiative, how successful you're doing, get feedback. We can always improve communication. I don't think there's an organization alive that can say that they can't. They don't have any room for improvement there. We can do more frequent releases. Like I said, we're about to release a product that we haven't released in a while. More frequent environment refresh. This is an important aspect of DevOps. When you're doing all these automations and testing and stuff, if your dev and QA and UAT environments don't match production very well, you're really doing a good PR. Maybe you'll get lucky, maybe you won't. The more frequently you can refresh that information and that structure, that infrastructure, the better off you are. Better test automation. Again, this goes along with communication. I don't think there's an organization that can't do it. So in conclusion, what I like to do is create a plan for, as it pertains to this, really anything, but DevOps particularly, execute that plan. Actually put it in, let it sit on the table and say, oh, I'll get to it later, I don't have time for that. The last thing you want to be is the guy that says, I don't have time to automate because I'm too busy doing the mundane stuff the automation can replace. Then check up on it. Is it working well? And then do any remediation you have to fix the areas where maybe it's not working so well. Always, always, always be pragmatic in your approach to software development, DevOps, all of that. You need to take a holistic view. Build interdepartmental trust. That's the most critical aspect, in my opinion, of DevOps. And if you don't do that well, you're setting yourself up for failure. Automate as much as you possibly can. Understand what you're going to automate before you do it. Be able to validate it once you do it, but automate it. And if you don't meet those first two criteria, get to a point where you can meet them, then automate it. Finally, avoid failure. Obviously, nobody wants to fail, but it is a great learning tool. The best learning tool is failure. A lot of people say fail often, fail frequently. You know, you don't want to fail frequently. You want to fail. You don't want to fail at all. But when you do fail, embrace it, learn from it, find out why you failed, and avoid it next time. It's a great learning tool. And if you work in an environment where your management isn't accepting of failure, well then that's a change they need to make. Because failure is going to happen. It's inevitable when you've got as many moving parts as we all have in our daily jobs. Finally, constantly evaluate what's going on. And at the end of the day, surround yourself with excellence. Be the dumbest person in the world. I guarantee you will grow. And that, in a nutshell, is what you do to get a successful DevOps initiative. What questions can I answer? Yes.
So how does it curate the automation? Is it a lot of testing?